Open your spice cabinet. Between the cinnamon and the cumin sits a small jar you bought years ago for one recipe. Cream of tartar. It has not moved since. You could not explain what it is if someone asked. Not cream, not tartar sauce, not a spice. But here is something that might surprise you. Cream of tartar is crystallized acid scraped from the inside of wine barrels. When grapes ferment, a reddish-brown crust forms along the barrel walls. Workers scrape it off, dissolve it, purify it, and grind it into white powder. 7,000 years of winemaking waste repackaged for your baking aisle, and it holds together more of your kitchen than you realize. The crust has been appearing inside wine vessels since humans first fermented grapes. At Haji Firuz Tepe, a Neolithic village in the Zagros Mountains of Iran, archaeologists found tartrate residue inside clay jars 7,000 years old. Nobody collected it. Nobody named it. Just the stubborn film wine left behind. Then something else happened. Medieval alchemists in southern France began scraping the residue and studying it. They called it tartarum, the secret bloodstone, because the crude crystals were stained dark red. They believed it held hidden properties. In 1768, Swedish chemist Carl Wilhelm Scheele isolated tartaric acid from that barrel crust, the first clear look at the molecule inside. 80 years later, Louis Pasteur examined tartaric acid crystals under a microscope and noticed something nobody had seen. The crystals were mirror images of each other. He separated them by hand with tweezers. That observation, published in 1848, launched stereochemistry. Modern molecular science started with wine crust. If you have ever opened a chilled white wine and noticed crystal shards on the cork, those are wine diamonds chemically identical to the cream of tartar in your cabinet. The substance existed for millennia as waste. Then someone figured out what to do with it. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The entire process runs on one simple fact about solubility, and that fact drives every step from barrel to bottle. It starts inside a wine cellar. After fermentation is complete, the barrels are emptied. Clinging to the oak walls is a rough, reddish-brown crystalline crust called argol. Workers scrape it off by hand. The secondary source is lees, the muddy sediment that collects at the bottom of fermentation tanks. Both are crude, stained, and far from the white powder you recognize. But both contain the same molecule, potassium bitartrate. The raw argol goes into heated water. This is where that solubility fact matters. At 20 degrees Celsius, potassium bitartrate dissolves at just 5.7 grams per liter. At 100 degrees, it dissolves at 61 grams per liter. That is more than a 10-fold difference. Hot water pulls the potassium bitartrate into solution and leaves behind grape skins, pigments, and solid organic debris. One temperature change does the first round of separation. The hot solution passes through filters, stripping out remaining color and particulates. What comes through is cleaner, but still not pure enough for your kitchen. Now the chemistry steps in. On an industrial scale, calcium hydroxide is added to the solution. This reacts with the tartaric acid to form calcium tartrate, which precipitates out, meaning it drops out of the liquid as a solid. That solid is collected, then treated with sulfuric acid, which frees the tartaric acid again. The freed acid recombines with potassium salts to form high-purity potassium bitartrate. This sequence strips out the last impurities and pushes the product to food-grade and pharmaceutical-grade standards. Then comes the step you can picture. The purified solution is cooled slowly. As the temperature drops, solubility plummets. The same principle that started the process now finishes it. Pure white crystals begin forming in the liquid. Clean, translucent, free of color. This is the moment where brown becomes white. The transformation is visible and complete. The crystals are dried either through natural evaporation or gentle low-temperature heating until all residual moisture is gone. Then they are milled into a fine powder, tested against FDA standards under its GRAS classification, generally recognized as safe, and sealed into airtight containers. That is it. Grapes ferment, acid crystallizes on barrel walls, workers scrape the crust, hot water dissolves it, filters clean it, chemistry purifies it, cold recrystallizes it. What started as reddish-brown wine residue becomes a fine white powder that sits in your cabinet for a decade next to the cinnamon. But the strangest part is not the process, it is what that powder accidentally created. In 1843, pharmacist Alfred Bird had a problem at home in Birmingham, England. His wife Elizabeth was allergic to both eggs and yeast, meaning she could not eat most baked goods. Bird combined cream of tartar with bicarbonate of soda and added cornstarch to keep them from reacting in the jar. When liquid hit the mixture, our acid met base, carbon dioxide released, and dough rose without yeast. He called it Bird's fermenting powder, the first baking powder ever made. He never patented it. That formula enabled quick breads, muffins, biscuits, layer cakes, pancakes, none of which existed before. Cream of tartar plus baking soda plus cornstarch equals baking powder. A man loved his wife, combined wine barrel scrapings with baking soda, and baking was never the same. Here is where the story flips. For 20 years, veterinarians could not explain why grapes caused kidney failure in dogs, or why some dogs collapsed from a handful while others showed no symptoms. In 2021, veterinarians at the ASPCA noticed something. Dogs who ate homemade Play-Doh, which contains cream of tartar, developed the same kidney failure as dogs who ate grapes. Same vomiting, same renal collapse. The common molecule was tartaric acid. Its concentration in grapes varies from 0.35 to 2% depending on variety and ripeness, explaining the inconsistency. The substance that lifts your meringue can shut down your dog's kidneys. One molecule, two opposite outcomes. Try this. Next time you bake Snickerdoodles, leave cream of tartar out of half the batch. Without it, a flat, crisp sugar cookie in cinnamon. With it, tangy bite, chewy center, a surface that puffs in the oven and crinkles as it cools. Cream of tartar is not a flavor addition to the Snickerdoodle. It is the Snickerdoodle. That same molecule stabilizes meringue by lowering egg white pH to the point where proteins bond tighter and hold more air. It prevents sugar from recrystallizing in candy by breaking sucrose into glucose and fructose, disrupting the crystal lattice. Every recipe that calls for it depends on it structurally, not for taste but for architecture. One caveat: cream of tartar has been trending online as a health supplement potassium booster, detox agent. Some claims lack clinical backing, and high doses risk hyperkalemia. Use it for what 7,000 years confirms baking chemistry. The reason nobody knows this ingredient: no brand, no spokesperson, and a name that describes nothing about what it is. The most powerful ingredient nobody can identify. That jar between the cinnamon and the cumin wine barrel scrapings, ground to powder, waiting for someone to ask what it is. Now you know. That is the process. We reveal how things actually work one story at a time. If there is something you would like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.